Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really happy to have Eric Coffin with me once again. Eric is the editor of the HRA family of publications. He can be reached at hrapublishers-mgmt.com or go to the website. It's hraadvisory.com, hraadvisory.com. Thanks for joining me, Eric.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
And really glad that you could come so shortly before the next Metals Investor Forum, which will be held in Vancouver on November 10th and 11th. And I would suggest to my listeners, go to J Taylor Media, Jay Taylor Media, click on the Metals Investor Forum banner there, and just name and email address, and you're off, and you'll be assured a place at the show. It is limited space. It's free, but it's limited space, and there are some people have tried to get in the past and couldn't because they just can't facilitate more than so many people. Eric, how are things shaping up for the next MIF?
They're looking pretty good. We've got pretty strong RSVPs already, and I've just barely started inviting subscribers and stuff myself. Yeah. Already got a pretty strong company lineup. I think there'll be a lot of interesting stories. There are a lot of guys with advanced stuff, but there's also a number of good exploration stories that are going to be there from me, from John, from Glenn, Jordan is bringing a couple, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's look at a couple of your exploration stories. A couple of them that I have in my letter and I like a lot. Almadex Minerals to start with the El Cobre project in Mexico. And that trades around Canadian $1.19, 48.2 million shares. Boy, that looks like they're onto another discovery. This team of father-son team, right?
Yeah, and they've certainly Dwayne and Morgan. Dwayne being the father, Morgan the son. They've had their share of them, and they spun this company out from the original Almadex, which is still around, or Almaden rather, which is still around, because they made a discovery in that company, the Ixtaca gold-silver project, which is sort of at feasibility stage, and they spun the exploration stuff into Almadex. They've been drilling now for about over a year, I guess, at El Cobre, and they've been drilling a lot at the north end at an area called Norte. Not surprisingly, they've generated a lot of really nice looking high grade porphyry holes. They're like gram and a half average over, say, 150 meters within bigger interceptions. The geometry is not the easiest to figure out, to be honest. I mean, I think that higher grade zone looks like it's, 40 or 50 or 60 million tons, which is a pretty nice start. I don't know if it would be a mine if it was totally by itself, but in this case it isn't. They've got 7 or 8 targets, and the one that I'm probably the most excited about is the one they're drilling now, which is called Rea Timbrillo. They've never drilled there before, neither has anyone else. It's a very big target area, but they very recently found outcrop where they didn't actually think there was any. Some new guys went in, did a bit of mapping. They've done a bunch of surface sampling. They're getting long stretches of gram and a half gold. These are porphyries. They usually have copper, but you don't usually get copper at surface. It leaches out, but that's a really, really exciting looking target, and that's where they're drilling right now, and that's why I wanted them to come to MIF. And actually, Joe Mazumdar invited them to MIF as well. They're also following the stock because of that target.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting target, and they have quite a few targets there, I think, at the El Cobre.
They've got several. I mean, Norte, you can already tell they're going to have a resource at Norte. I don't know how big it'll be. Mm-hmm. There's 2 or 3 other targets in the area that Rio Timbrillo is part of. That's actually a very large-scale target. It's like 2 by 3 kilometers. Most of it, there's no outcrop. But the last time I talked to Morgan recently, he said they had really have guys bushwhacking now that they found some outcrop. And he said they have found more of these outcrops with the sheeted veins in them, half a kilometer south of Rio. They don't know whether they're connected or they're separate, but, the point is, they seem to keep coming up with more and more targets. The other thing that Almadex has, which is worth mentioning, because a lot of people love royalty deals, Almadex does have royalties on several of the projects that were originally discovered by the father and son team, including Ixtaca, that's at feasibility, and also a company, a project called Cerro Blanco, which is just to the northeast of El Cobre. It used to be part of the same property, and that project is also in development. They're just getting ready to apply for mining permits on that, and they have royalties on both of those in Almadex. So, and I don't think the royalties get valued at all.
They're kind of, I agree with you. They're kind of a project generator kind of a company, but they focus on something that looks like it really has promise. And then they have their own drill rigs, don't they? So they keep their costs down dramatically. They keep the number of shares down very well. It's just an extremely well run company, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean they're very, very, they're very high end professional guys. They've done a great job at actually buying drills, training crews really well, so they've got really talented drill crews, because I've seen other companies buy drills, and frankly, most of the time it ends badly. In their case, it's been great, because they've got all these great drill crews, and they're probably drilling for, I don't know, $20 or $30 a meter, which is a fraction of what other companies are paying.
Right. Yeah, well, this is certainly one of my favorites, no doubt about it. I own it personally as well. Vendetta Mining Corp, another one that I own. The share price has been a bit disappointing, but they seem to be doing good work. Things seem to be coming along very well. Eric, tell us about Vendetta, their lead zinc project in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, Vendetta I really like because it's a lead zinc project. The last resource they put out showed, if you're assuming 1 million tons a year mining, probably 10 years of open pit mine life, and it's the open pit part that was a surprise. They actually expected most of this to be underground, but it turns out they've got a lot more near surface resource than they expected. If you look across a whole set of lead zinc deposits, you'd kind of go, well, 5% lead zinc, big whoop. It's the fact that it's open pit that counts. To me, this looks like very high margin stuff. They did put out a release this morning that I think helps explain some of the weird trading, because it has been weird lately. It seems to be boxed into this small price range in the mid-20s. They mentioned this morning that a new shareholder has arrived, and it's actually a very large base metal mining company in China that bought the warrants from one of their existing warrant holders and exercised them. And they also mentioned that Solitario, one of their other big shareholders, has just exercised their warrants. Basically, 25 million of the 50 million warrants that were floating around have been exercised now. And I think some of this trading that we're seeing is one guy's doing crosses and two guys selling to exercise warrants. I think that's why you've seen all this volume, but the price isn't going anywhere. I think that's what it is. And to me, anything that gets rid of the warrants is a good thing. That release also mentioned the fact that they're up. I think the whole number they're at now, I think there's something like 20 or 25 holes in the lab. And they're about to start drilling this copper occurrence they have on the property that was kind of a surprise. They've only got one hole in it, and they're not making a big deal out of it, but they did do geophysics. The target's actually fairly large, so they're going to give it a shot. If they do find any significant amount of copper resource there, that really opens things up. I mean, I've stuck my neck out on this thing already and said I don't think it's around by the middle of next year. I think there's a high probability this one gets taken out, because it's right in the middle of a lead zinc mining camp. There's majors all around it. Right.
And in need of ore, I guess.
Yeah, one of the ones, the one to the south, they've basically run out. And that one, which is Chinova, their mill happens to be perfectly suited to this copper, or if this copper turns out to be something, if there's even a couple million tons of it, I think, frankly, the probability would be high that Chinova would pull the trigger, because it would be perfect for them. And the guys to the north, South 32, which runs the Osborne operation, their mine is very similar material to the main lead zinc zones. And in fact, I think they consulted a little bit with Vendetta when they did their metallurgy, because Vendetta wanted to make sure the process they use in their mill was the same process they were using to test the metallurgy, which had good results. I mean, they got good lead zinc concentrate. So, I mean, they're very aware of the fact they're surrounded by majors.
Eric, I want to ask you about, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on zinc right now? I know you've made a point that the zinc bull markets generally tend not to last too long. And one of the reasons you like Vendetta, because it could have a project that would be ready to take advantage of a short zinc, window for a bull market. What are your thoughts now? Because I want to ask you also about Fireweed Zinc, another company that you like.
I do think this one's going to be. I think this one will be longer than the last one. I mean, we're still in that uncertain period where the zinc prices moved a lot. It went up to $1.50 in the last couple of weeks, then got whacked back 5 or 6 cents just today. The official visible zinc inventories are at near critical levels. We're just above 10 days consumption. Last time we had a really crazy run, and back in 2007, it basically started when we dipped below 10 days consumption. I just don't see a lot on the horizon when you look at the pipeline of things that can come on stream. So I think actually, unlike 2007, and we're already at $1.40, $1.50, so we're well into a bull market. I think this one could actually last. This one could last 2 or 3 years rather than sort of being up for 6 months and then boom back for 6 months. I think this one's going to last longer than that, and I think the price when it's over, the base price is actually going to be, it's not going to go back to 70 or 80 cents. I think it goes back to like $1.10 or $1.20. There's just not much in the pipeline to fill needs over the next 3 or 4 years.
What were the highs in the last bull market, more or less?
$2 a pound, basically.
How much?
It hit $2 a pound in the last one.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So
I think there's still I won't be surprised at all if it hits $2 a pound again. I mean that would be my expectation.
All right, that would probably bring some supply onto the market, I suppose. That wouldn't otherwise be there.
The thing, we don't know we just don't know whether there's stuff out there, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the question mark. Is there's always, in terms of official supplies, we're just over 10 days. The question mark and this is the same for all base metals. There's always stuff that isn't in official warehouses, and and we have seen a bit. We've seen 5,000 tons a day here, 5,000 tons a day there for the last 2 weeks. And that's sort of what I've been really watching for is, does this move to $1.50, pull a whole bunch into the warehouses? It's brought in a little bit, but not much so far. And there may simply not be as much of the stuff lying around as people think.
All right, Eric, a couple more companies we want to ask you about. Fireweed Zinc, while we're on the topic of zinc. Yes, so they only 17.8 million shares, 75 cents, really low market cap. What can you tell us about Fireweed Zinc?
Fireweed has got a project called McMillan Pass up in the Yukon, and on McMillan Pass there are 2 separate lead zinc deposits. They're very nice resources. They actually just finished a drill program, and the main reason behind that program, some of it's metallurgical samples, but it was mainly so that they could upgrade the historical resource and be able to officially report it. The historic resource is about, between the 2 deposits, it's about 30 million tons at, I think it's about 8 or 9% combined lead zinc, more zinc than lead. And what's interesting about it as a Yukon project, and obviously you say Yukon, people realize, okay, it's up there. It is. There is a road to this project, which not many projects in the Yukon can say. And it's also got some very high grade zones within this larger resource. I think their plan is to get a 43-101 done before the end of this year, come up with a resource, and then immediately go to doing a PEA. And it's not that they think they found everything they can find. They just realize that people are going to look at the location in the Yukon and go, oh, well, that's just not going to work. So they want to put out a PEA to show, here's some numbers. We think this will work. I think it, say $1.10, $1.15 lead zinc prices, so well below where zinc is right now. I think this thing still probably puts out 20 or 30% IRR. Current zinc price is quite a bit higher, and it's because of the grade. Because of the grade and the size. I mean, there aren't many 30 million ton lead zinc of deposits around with these kind of grades that weren't bought by a major years ago. And if I thought this was a 6-month zinc cycle, I'd probably be less likely to follow it. But because I do think this is going to be a long zinc cycle, I think these guys will have the time. And like you said, with the incredibly tight share structure they have, their market cap's $12 million. They're way undervalued compared to peers.
Yeah, 12 million Canadian, I might tell our listeners.
They really haven't started marketing yet. So, I mean, it only listed like 3 months ago, so not that many people know about it. But I think they're going to. That's the other reason to be sort of get on it, is because I think they're going to change that. They've told me they're going to get serious about marketing and get out there and talk about it.
Well, yeah, you've got to do a certain amount of that. That's for sure. All right, with just about 4 minutes left here, we got a couple of more companies. I'd like to ask you about Adamera Resources, which is one that I own. It's in my newsletter. What are your thoughts on that?
Adamera's had a tough summer. I mean, it's a stock that I've been a pretty big proponent of. I'm a big fan of Mark Holobaba that runs it. They're working on a large project in Northeast Washington. They did a huge airborne survey last year. They've been doing field work all summer. They've drilled 2 or 3 targets without a huge amount of joy yet, but they do have a large number of targets yet. They're still working through permitting with the Forest Service, which is not famous for being fast. But it sounds like they're going to get permits for some of their favorite targets soon. But the most interesting thing, I think, is after a couple of months of being very quiet, they started getting news out again. This morning's news I thought was particularly interesting because they noted that they drilled a hole near Overlook, and Overlook is a past-producing mine that's sort of within their claim group. And management noted that they had sent assays out on a rush basis, and the way that works is if you want rush assays, you basically pay the lab twice the usual price, and they put you at the front of the line. Mark Holobaba, if you know him as well as I do, you'd know he's an incredibly frugal guy. They've got a huge amount of work done for very little money. If Mark is rushing something, he thinks there's something in that hole. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. I don't know if there is at the gold property. We'll find out when the assays come back, but Mark's not the kind of guy that throws money around. So if he's rushing assays, they saw something they like.
All right. They'll be at the Metals Investor Forum. Vendetta will be there. Fireweed Zinc will be there, I believe. Have I got that right? Almadex?
Yeah, Almadex. Vendetta, I'm not 100% on, but
sure.
I think the other guys will all be there. Yeah, I know the other guys will be.
All right, Eric, with just a minute or so left here, what about Goldquest? Did they come out with some news today?
Yeah, they put out some more Kachimbo results. Kachimbo is a VMS sort of in the southern end of their property. It's just north of the Ginger Ridge area on the Precipitate property.
Yes.
They put out a set of holes. I can't honestly say they've got this thing figured out yet, and I think they'd be the first to tell you that. But they did just put out another very strong looking hole. They're getting this high grade gold. It seems to be in the barite, which is kind of strange, but not sure how that works. But that's just how it is at Kachimbo. And this morning's hole was 59 meters at 3.3 grams, including 21 meters at 10 grams. Pretty nice hole.
Oh, we better keep our eyes on that one then. Eric, we're out of time, unfortunately. John took too much of it. But thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to seeing you at the Metals Investor Forum. And folks, you want to pay attention to what Eric has to say. He's going to be there. He'll be talking. And those companies that I just mentioned will be there, along with some of my own recommendations as well. Eric, thanks so much for being with us.